Our guest for this evening is Alex Rowe. He is an actor. He is a director. He is a sweeper of floors and unclogger of toilets. There is a name for people like that. Artistic director. And Alex is the artistic director of the Metropolitan Playhouse. Alex, welcome. It's wonderful to have you back.
It's a great pleasure to see you both again. Thanks for having me back.
We're so happy to have you back with us, Alex. You were one of our first guests on Critic Circle. And now Metropolitan Playhouse, of which you are artistic director, as Charlie said, is reopening with a play that you were going to do in 2020. So tell us about what's going on.
Sure. You remind me, it was a year and a half ago when we had to pull the plug right before we were going into tech for Radium Girls by D.W. Gregory, a story from the 1920s of the illuminated watch dial and instrument painters who were regularly touching radium-laced infused paint to their lips with their paintbrushes, and gradually developed radiological diseases, and ultimately pursued cases that brought down the industry and earned them some compensation, or their families compensation, but many of them had perished before that came through. And heart-rending story, but was also a watershed in industrial action and workers' rights. Incredibly important subject, a beautiful play written in 2000, so 80 years later, and remarkably and sort of uncannily timely now. So we did manage to keep most of the cast together. We lost 3 dear members of the cast, wonderful performers, and replaced them with also wonderful performers.
When you say lost, you don't mean lost. You mean they went on to other things, I hope?
Thank you for the clarification. It's an
no,
important
because in this day and age, lost could have many meanings. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes, one has been called out of town for a while and is going to be back in the city until 2022, and a couple others had other commitments that they had to meet. That the timing just didn't work out. But we have a fantastic cast. Everybody is right up to speed. We were able to conduct not a full length, but another pretty substantial rehearsal period and develop some effects and things that we might not have been able to pull off at the time. So it's been a kind of triumphant return of the play, and in many ways a surprising, only surprising because I didn't expect all the feelings that would be there, and joyous return to live in-person performance after a very exciting year of virtual performance for us. But it's a real pleasure to be back in the space, and particularly with this play, which seems so meaningful now.
You did a lot of developing, a lot of online work during the pandemic. Are you just going to go back to business as usual, or are you going to build on what was developed when the theater itself was closed?
There are probably 3 answers to that. One is business as usual has taken on a new form anyway. We've got new air purifiers. We're masking. We're vaccinating, and we hope that this period will pass also. But it has changed, I think, the way that we approach our work and our care for one another in the space. So that's one thing. Another is, we really had a very exciting experience with virtual programming. One audience member said yesterday, there's nothing, she attended all of our online programs, but she said there's nothing like being in the theater, and I certainly agree with that. But we did some incredibly, I thought, incredibly innovative and very engaging virtual programs, and I don't want to let that just go to waste and disappear. So I'm looking for ways of continuing it, with some navigating of union restrictions and timing, but doing it enabled us both to explore the technology and find new ways of storytelling, new ways of bringing people locally together, but also ways of reaching out across the country and internationally. And so we have another a reading of a play, a full-length play by Neith Boyce, scheduled for 1925, I think it was, scheduled for December 11th. I'm going to get the date right, and that'll be online. And I would look forward to figuring out what else we can do, not to let all that work and discovery just disappear. It's very exciting to do it.
The original play about the Radium Girls was in the 1920s at some point, but this play is from 2000, and you're not known for doing, quote, new plays. So tell us how that came about.
Oh, sure. And our mission is to better understand the culture we live in through theater, through its older theater, often the lost plays that are right from the time that tell us about what people were thinking, how they were approaching issues, which is always surprising and illuminating. But it can also be using theater to reflect on seminal moments of American history. So we've done more plays, I think, than anyone recognizes from the 70s, from the 90s, from the 2000s. But they're always about these important cultural moments in the past. This play is written not exactly in a documentary style, but because the lines, although many of the characters are drawn from history, and some of the dialogue is a quotation, say, of something that you might have read in a court case or in a newspaper article, but mostly it is invented, and yet it's told in a way that's familiar to watchers of the living newspapers of the Federal Theater Project. It's filled with a bunch of even caricature-like characters who appear for a moment and disappear. So that rapid changing of scenes, it would be familiar in a sense to people who remember these plays, more experimental plays from the 30s. So in another way, it corresponds with the kind of work we're better known for. There were so many ways it seemed relevant even in 2020. In part, the notion of a fad, a dangerous fad overtaking people's lives. And that's so much more remote than a health concern, but that's a big part of it. You had this enchanting technology that everyone came obsessed with without really understanding what it might be doing to them.
I wanted to add one thing that you left out that's really so evident to me, and that is that it's women who brought a law case at a time when women had barely gotten the vote and are able to win. They're able to win a case against a giant corporation. I mean, you can't win because they're all going to die, but the point is that they made the case and they won the case in court.
And I note that it took a decade to win those cases. I mean, the cases were drawn out and litigated forever, both in Chicago and in Orange, New Jersey. And there's in Connecticut, and I think it was Waterbury. There was also a watch manufacturer.
Because they hoped the girls would die, and then
they did.
Away.
That's right. In most cases, it was all post-mortem satisfaction or justice, if you can call it that.
I was at a theater last night, off-Broadway theater, and there were about 6 cameras set up, and I asked what was going on, and they were apparently taping the play with the hope of streaming it. Now, this is something that I have hoped theaters would be doing for over 40 years, and now it seems to be becoming a reality. Do you anticipate videoing any of your works? Will we perhaps be able to see them on Netflix or Amazon or even YouTube?
We had managed to videotape the play we did and closed right before the shutdown, and that was Robert Ardrey's Thunder Rock. And we got special funding to do it and special dispensation from the Actors Union to do it, so that we could have a little piece of our work to show potential funders. And this has become increasingly important. This is where the world lives now. And the result was, I think, such a magical video. I had no idea how successfully we could videotape and capture the feel of one of our plays on video. So that got me very excited about it. We haven't set up the plans, in part because of the funding, to do this play yet. And negotiating the rights and the restrictions that may or may not apply in the future is something I'm just exploring. So I'll say it's very exciting. The promise of it is great. I don't have concrete plans at this moment because all my attention has been focused on getting this play on the stage. But I think it's a great idea, Charlie, and I think it's actually a very important thing for all of us to embrace and discover how to do.
What can we look forward to later in this season?
Well, of course, immediately there are a couple of things coming up. We have a concert the 15th, and we do, I would say, irregular, but offhand one-off events. So we have some of those planned, one-person shows coming up later on. But the next main stage show, full-length play we're going to do is a collection of short plays by Eulalie Spence, a sort of pre-Harlem Renaissance African-American woman writer. And those are scheduled for end of January and into February. Wonderful short plays about Black life. As the director and I were talking about it, as he said, out of the white gaze. This is the stories of people's lives as told by the people who are living them. They're not political polemics, and everyone's not a saint, everyone's not a victim. Their plays about people living their real lives, and really dear and marvelous plays. A collection of shorts, which is something we got more interested in doing during the pandemic, because most of our readings were short ones, but they really have a dynamic power of pulling all these plays together. So that's up next, I can tell you.
Okay, so Alex Rowe, call him artistic director or perhaps chief cook and bottle washer, either fits. Metropolitan Playhouse. So happy that your doors are opened. Wonderful to have you back here. Thank you.
Just remember to wear a mask and show your vaccine status when you get
That's
there.
right. Vaccine cards and masks still required.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Thank you all
Alex.
so much. Great to see you again.